The silence within the grand obsidian synod of the Kyloth hegemony was not merely an absence of sound. It was a physical weight, a crushing atmospheric pressure that bowed the chitinous spines of the 300 high counselors. The great chamber, carved from the hollowed heart of a dead moon, usually hummed with the vibratory language of the Kyloth, a symphony of clicking mandibles and harmonic chest thrumming that dictated the fate of 12 star systems. Today, however, the air was stagnant, tasting of recycled oxygen and the copper tang of terra pheromones. In the center of the amphitheater, suspended in a sphere of hard light projection, played the footage that had doomed them all. It was a short loop, grainy and distorted by the electromagnetic interference of the event, but the horror was undeniable. It showed the diplomatic outpost on the fringe world of Xylar, a dusty, unimportant rock used for initial contact protocols. It showed High Commander Vren, a warrior of impeccable lineage and disastrous temper, standing before the bipedal creature known as a Terran. The Terran was small, soft-skinned, lacking the natural armor of the Kyloth, standing wrapped in simple synthetic fabrics that offered no protection against the elements or plasma fire. The negotiations had stalled. The Terran had refused to bow. Vren, insulted by the creature's insolence and stillness, had drawn his ceremonial plasma glaive. The arc of energy was a blinding white slash in the recording. It severed the Terran's left arm just above the elbow. Counselors flinched, even though they had seen the footage a dozen times in the last hour. They flinched not at the violence. Violence was the currency of the hegemony, but at what happened next. In the recording, the Terran did not scream. It did not fall into shock. It did not prostrate itself and beg for mercy as 1,000 conquered species had done before. The Terran simply looked down at the cauterized stump where smoke curled lazily into the thin atmosphere of Xylar. Then, the creature looked up. Its binocular eyes, previously dull and unreadable, focused on Vren with a predatory intensity that transcended biology. It reached into a pouch with its remaining hand, withdrew a clotting foam, applied it with the precision of a machine, and spoke 3 words into its translator unit before turning and walking back to its shuttle. The translator, struggling with the nuances of the Terran dialect, had rendered the phrase as, "Calibration complete. Wait." The shuttle had departed. Vren had laughed. The laughter in the recording seemed to echo now as a death knell in the silence of the synod. Because 6 standard hours after that shuttle departed, the stars above the Kyloth homeworld, Othries, had begun to vanish. High Archon Thalcrax, the supreme ruler of the hegemony, rose from his throne of fused meteorite. He was ancient, his carapace scarred white by centuries of ritual combat, but his movements were heavy with a fatigue that no age could excuse. He gestured with a 4-fingered talon toward the hologram. "Vren is dead," Thalcrax rumbled, his voice scraping like tectonic plates. "He took his own life when the sky went dark. He realized, too late, the scale of his error. But his death does not restore the light of our sun." The Archon looked up through the transparent dome of the synod chamber toward the void where the twin suns of Othries should have been burning in golden majesty. There was nothing there, only a suffocating, unnatural darkness. It was not a cloud, it was not an eclipse, it was a fleet. A fleet so dense, so massive, and so perfectly positioned that it formed a Dyson shell of pure hull metal and weaponry around the entire planet, blocking out the solar wind, the light, and the hope of 4 billion Kyloth. "They did not declare war," Thalcrax continued, his voice trembling with a rare frequency of fear. "They did not demand surrender. They simply arrived, and they are waiting." "It is a blockade," argued Counselor Zal, a younger, more aggressive female whose mandibles twitched with the urge to fight. "They are posturing. No species can manifest a fleet of this magnitude from nowhere. It is a trick of the sensors, a holographic projection meant to terrify us into submission. The Terrans are a minor species. We have scanned their transmissions. They are fractured, emotional, short-lived. To suggest they possess the industrial capacity to wall off a sun is heresy against the laws of physics." Zal stepped forward, her ceremonial armor clinking. "We must fire. We must launch the kinetic breakers. If we shatter this illusion, we regain our honor. Vren's action was a mistake, yes, but to maim a diplomat is a minor grievance in the galactic scale. Retaliation of this magnitude is disproportionate. It proves they are bluffing." "Disproportionate?" The word came from the shadows of the lower tier, spoken by xenologist Emrek. Emrek was a small, withered Kyloth, a scholar who had spent his life studying the signals from the deep dark. He moved forward, leaning on a staff of voidwood. "You speak of proportion as if these creatures operate on our scale, Counselor Zal. You looked at the severed limb and saw flesh. I looked at the severed limb and saw the truth." Emrek manipulated the controls of the hologram, freezing the image of the Terran's stump. He zoomed in. The counselors leaned forward. There, amidst the charred meat and bone, was a glint of something silver. Something intricate. Threads, Emrek whispered. Nanolattice filaments woven directly into the osteostructure. That arm was not merely biological, it was augmented. And look at the reaction time. The clotting agent was applied within 1.4 seconds of trauma. The heart rate of the Terran, monitored by Vren's own suit sensors, did not spike. It dropped. A murmur of confusion rippled through the hall. Dropped, Thalcrax asked. Impossible. Pain induces tachycardia, fear induces panic. Unless, Emrek said, his voice dropping to a terrified hush, they are not suppressing the fear, unless they are activating a combat algorithm. We assumed the Terran was a diplomat because it wore robes and spoke soft words. But look at the fleet blocking our suns. Look at the silence. Diplomats argue, diplomats threat. Warriors fight, but executioners are silent. Emrek turned to the High Archon. We did not shoot off a diplomat's arm, Archon. We activated a tripwire. That creature was a sensor, a biological test. We failed the test. The fleet above is not here to negotiate a treaty. It is here to sanitize a threat. The dread that settled over the chamber was broken by the screaming of the siren. It was the warning tone of the planetary defense grid, a sound that had not been heard in 300 cycles. The darkness above was shifting. The massive shell of human ships was moving, not away, but closer. The atmospheric sensors screamed as the gravitational displacement of millions of gigatons of mass began to distort the tides of Othries' oceans. Giant waves were pummeling the coastlines. The tectonic plates were groaning under the tidal stress of the alien armada descending into low orbit. They were not firing. They were simply crushing the planet with their presence. Thalcrax slammed his talon onto the command console. Open a channel. All frequencies, wideband, narrowbeam, gravitational wave, psychic resonance. Get them on the screen. I will not die in the dark because a fool swung a sword. The technicians, their carapaces pale with shock, scrambled over the controls. The main display flickered. Static white noise and then a sudden absolute clarity. The image that resolved was not a bridge nor a war room. It was a stark white room devoid of ornamentation. In the center sat a single human. It was the same human, the one from the surface, the one with the missing arm. He sat in a simple chair, his posture relaxed, almost bored. The left sleeve of his tunic was pinned up, emphasizing the absence of the limb. He was reading a physical book, turning the pages with his remaining hand. He did not look up at the screen immediately. He let the High Council of the Kyloth hegemony wait. He let the Archon of 12 systems watch him read. The insult was profound, calculated, and devastating. Finally, the human closed the book, a thick volume with archaic script on the cover, and placed it on a small table. He looked into the camera. His eyes were cold, devoid of the anger the Kyloth expected. There was no fire, no rage, only a terrifying, icy pragmatism. I am Ambassador Kale, the human said. His voice was not amplified. It was transmitted with crystal clarity directly into the audio receptors of every Kyloth in the room. You have severed a component of the United Terra diplomatic corpus. According to Article 7 of the Contact Protocols, physical aggression against an envoy initiates a Class 4 escalation. We are currently in the deployment phase of that escalation. Thalcrax stepped forward, his voice booming to hide his trembling. Terran, we acknowledge the error of Commander Vren. He has paid with his life. We offer reparations. We offer territory. But you block our suns. You threaten our world with tidal destruction. This is madness. A war for an arm? Is your flesh so sacred that you would extinguish a civilization for a single limb? Ambassador Kale tilted his head slightly, as if listening to a distant frequency. You misunderstand, he said softly. We are not here for the arm. The arm is inconsequential. Flesh can be reprinted. Bone can be woven. I have a replacement in the medical bay that is superior to the biological original in every metric. No, Archon, we are not here because you hurt me. We are here because of what your violence represents. Kale leaned forward and the camera zoomed in slightly, capturing the faint, rhythmic pulse of a biolite at his temple, an implant the Kyloth had missed. You tacked an unarmed envoy who offered you the hand of friendship. You responded to stillness with plasma. This indicates a societal flaw, a genetic predisposition toward unprovoked aggression when faced with the unknown. Our algorithms predict that if allowed to expand, the Kyloth hegemony will eventually pose a 94% probability of threat to the Galactic Stability Pact. Galactic Stability Pact, Counselor Zal shouted. There is no such thing. We have mapped the sector. We are the apex. You have mapped your backyard, Kale said, his voice dropping an octave, becoming a resonant hum that vibrated the floor of the Synod. You are children playing with matches in a library. We are the librarians, and you have just set fire to a book. The human stood up. The ships above you are not a blockade, Archon. They are a containment field. We are not here to wage war. War implies a chance of victory for both sides. This is an intervention. We will fight, Zal screamed, drawing her own sidearm, uselessly aiming it at the screen. We have the kinetic breakers. We have the void missiles. We will tear your ships from the sky. Kale looked at her with a mixture of pity and indifference. Proceed, he said, and then the connection cut. The screen went black. The darkness above remained. Launch, Zal commanded, overriding the Archon. Launch everything. The military commanders, caught in the hysteria of the moment and the terrifying logic of the human, obeyed. From the silos deep within the crust of Othries, the pride of the Kyloth military erupted. Thousands of fusion-tipped missiles, kinetic penetrators, and plasma lances streaked upward, a rain of fire intended to pierce the shell of human ships. The counselors watched the tactical displays, praying to their ancestors, waiting for the explosions, waiting for the gap in the darkness that would let the sun shine through again. They watched as the missiles breached the stratosphere. They watched as the weapons approached the human hull line, and then they watched them stop. They didn't explode. They didn't hit shields. They simply stopped. Thousands of Mach 20 projectiles froze instantly in the upper ionosphere, arrested by a force that ignored inertia. The tactical display washed out in a sea of red error messages, gravitational anomaly detected, vector collapse, physics violation. They have grabbed the missiles, Emrek whispered, his eyes wide with the religious awe of a scientist seeing a god. They didn't shoot them down, they caught them. High above in the silent vacuum, the human ships, vast, sleek dreadnoughts of matte black composite, manipulated the gravity wells they projected. With a collective pulse that registered on the planet below as a massive magnetic thrum, the human fleet reversed the vectors. The missiles turned. Slowly, deliberately, the thousands of weapons pointed back at the planet. Archon, the communications officer, wept. They are hailing us again. The screen flickered. Kale was back. He hadn't moved. He was sitting in the chair again, but the book was gone. We have intercepted your kinetic request, he said calmly. We decline to receive it. We are returning your ammunition. However, we will disassemble the warheads first. We are not butchers. On the tactical screens, the Kyloth watched as their missiles were dismantled in midair by invisible beams of focused antiproton streams. The nuclear cores were neutralized. The plasma dispersed harmlessly into the aurora borealis. The casings, harmless metal tubes now, rained down upon the cities of Othries like hail, clattering against rooftops and streets, a rain of failure. Thalcrax sank into his throne. The power gap was absolute. The Kyloth had spent centuries perfecting the art of killing. The humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of control. The Archon realized then the true horror of the situation. The humans were not angry. They were disappointed, and they were going to put the Kyloth in a timeout. What do you want? Thalcrax whispered, his spirit broken. You could have vaporized us. You caught our fire and turned it into rain. You block our suns. You shame our warriors. What is the price of the arm? Name it. Kale's expression softened just a fraction. It was the first sign of humanity he had shown. The arm was the price of admission, Archon. It showed us who you are. Now we must show you who we are. He stood up and walked toward the camera. Prepare a landing zone at the Synod. I am coming down, and I am bringing the dangerous ships you fear, not to destroy you, but to show you what you are actually facing. You think we are the enemy. You think we are the conquerors. You are wrong. We are the shield. And you. You are standing in the middle of the firing line. The transmission ended. Above, the solid shell of ships began to part. A single shaft of golden sunlight pierced the darkness, striking the obsidian pyramid of the Synod. Down that beam of light descended a Vess. Unlike the others, it was not black. It was white, gleaming and shaped like a tear in reality. As the shuttle landed in the center of the great plaza outside the Synod, the Kyloth military stood down. There was no point in weapons. The air shimmered with the heat of the vessel's engines. The ramp lowered. Ambassador Kale walked out. He was not alone. Behind him marched a phalanx of soldiers in power armor that hummed with zero-point energy fields. They were giants, 7 feet tall, their faces obscured by opaque visors. But it was Kale who drew the eye. He had changed. The empty sleeve was gone. In its place was a prosthetic of terrifying beauty. It was not an imitation of a hand. It was a construct of floating chrome segments, held together by hard light fields, fingers shifting and reconfiguring into tools, interfaces, and weapons with every thought. He raised the new arm, and the floating fingers expanded, projecting a holographic map of the galaxy into the air above the plaza. The counselors, led by Thalcrax, emerged from the synod to meet him. The atmosphere was thick with the dust of the dismantled missiles. "This," Kale said, gesturing to the map with his chrome hand, "is the galaxy as you know it. 12 systems, safe, conquerable." He swiped his hand and the map zoomed out. The scale was dizzying. "This is the galaxy as it actually is, billions of stars." He swiped again, zooming out to the local cluster, then the supercluster. "And this is the silence." He pointed to a vast, dark sector of the map, a void where no stars shone. "You wondered why we were so calm. You wondered why we carry weapons that can manipulate gravity. You thought we were an empire of conquest." Kale looked at Thalcrax, and his eyes held a sorrow that was ancient and deep. "We are refugees, Archon. We are the survivors of the Great Filter." A hush fell over the plaza. The wind howled through the obsidian spires. 5,000 years ago," Kale continued, his voice amplified by the suit, "humanity expanded just like you, aggressive, proud. We shot first and asked questions later. We thought we were the apex. Then we met the others." He pointed to the dark void on the map. "They do not negotiate. They do not value courage. They are entropy incarnate, a biological imperative to consume all organized energy. We fought them for 1,000 years. We lost Earth. We lost our colonies. We lost 90% of our species. We retreated into the dark, hiding, building, changing ourselves from flesh to something harder." He flexed the cybernetic arm. "We replaced our weak parts with steel. We replaced our fear with logic. We built ships not to conquer, but to survive. We became the dangerous ships because the universe is a dangerous place." Kale stepped closer to the trembling Archon. "When your commander cut off my arm, he didn't just injure a diplomat. He wasted time. We were passing through your system. We were moving our fleet to the Galactic rim to reinforce the barricade. The silence is growing, Archon. The others are returning. We stopped here to warn you, to offer you a place behind the shield. Instead, you attacked us. You forced us to stop. You forced us to turn our guns on you." We did not know," Thalcrax stammered. "The sensors, they showed nothing in that sector." "Because we cloak it," Kale said. "To keep them from finding you. We have been protecting you for centuries, and you didn't even know it." The revelation struck the Kyloth like a physical blow. Their arrogance, their martial pride, their belief in their own supremacy, it all crumbled. They were not the kings of the jungle. They were children sleeping in a crib while the parents fought wolves at the door, and the child had just bitten the parent's hand. "Why?" asked Counselor Zal, her voice small, stripped of its aggression. "Why protect us? We are weak. We are foolish. We attacked you." Kale looked at her, and for the first time he smiled. It was a sad, tired smile. "Because we were you once. Because the universe is cold and dark, and if we don't look out for the little lights, who will?" He turned back to the map and manipulated the darkness. Red dots began to appear on the fringe of the Kyloth sector. "But we have lost time. The incident at Outpost 9 drew our fleet out of formation. The energy signature of your missile launch has likely been detected. They are coming." "Who?" Thalcrax asked, dread pooling in his gut. "The harvesters," Kale said. "The vanguard of the entropy. They smell the energy. They smell the fear." As if on cue, the sky above the human fleet began to tear. It wasn't the clean warp entry of the human ships. It was a violent purple bruising of reality. Cracks formed in the fabric of space, oozing a sickly, impossible light. The human ships, the dangerous ships that had terrified the Kyloth, suddenly shifted. They stopped pointing their gravity cannons at the planet and turned them outward. The containment shell BR. Oak formation, reassembling into a phalanx of defense, a wall of black metal between Othries and the tearing sky. "The war you feared is here," Kale said, his cybernetic arm humming as it transformed into a heavy plasma caster. "But it is not against us." The first of the harvesters spilled from the rift. They were not ships. They were biological horrors the size of cities, writhing masses of tentacle and tooth, fueled by void energy screaming across the electromagnetic spectrum. They dwarfed the Kyloth cruisers. They made even the human dreadnoughts look small. "Synod Command," Thalcrax roared, finding his voice, finding his purpose. "All ships, all batteries, do not fire on the humans, target the rifts, support the Terran fleet, flight mechanics synchronize with human targeting data." "We are receiving data link requests," the communications officer shouted, shocking hope in his voice. "The humans are sharing their battlenet by the ancestors, the processing speed. It's infinite." Kale tapped the side of his head. "We are linking you in. Do not panic. You will see the battlefield as we see it. You will see the mathematics of the war." Suddenly, the Kyloth commanders saw. The chaotic, terrifying battle resolved into a stream of pure data. They saw the weak points of the bioships. They saw the optimal firing trajectories. The humans weren't just fighting, they were conducting a symphony of destruction. "We have a gap in Sector 4, Kale shouted, looking at the sky. "One of the harvesters is breaking through the human line. It's heading for your northern continent." Thalcrax looked at the tactical map. The human ships were engaged. They couldn't move fast enough. The harvester, a bloated tick of cosmic proportions, was descending, ready to drink the life from the planet. "We have nothing there," Zal cried. "No defenses." "You have ships," Kale said. "You have your ramming cruisers, the ones you threatened us with." Thalcrax understood. It was a suicide run, but it was the only way. "Commander Zal," he said, turning to the female counselor, "your fleet is in position." Zal looked at the screen. She looked at the human who had spared them. She looked at the monster descending from the sky, her mandibles set in a grim line. "For the hegemony," she whispered. "For the shield." "For the shield," Thalcrax echoed. In the sky above, Zal's squadron of cruisers lit their afterburners. They didn't fire. They became the kinetic breakers they were named for. With a scream of engines that vibrated the bones of everyone on the ground, the Kyloth ships accelerated toward the harvester. "Witness us," came Zal's voice over the comms. The collision was silent in the void, but the flash blinded the sensors. The Kyloth ships slammed into the harvester's central nerve cluster. The explosion was a miniature star. The bioship shuddered, its scream dying in the vacuum, and began to fall apart, burning up in the atmosphere. Kale watched the debris rain down. He placed his human hand on his chest in a salute. "Brave," he murmured. "Foolish, but brave." The battle raged for 3 hours. The sky of Othries burned with the light of dying suns and dying monsters. The human fleet took heavy losses. The dangerous ships bled atmosphere and crew, placing their hulls in the path of acid spittle and void beams to protect the planet below. But slowly, methodically, the harvesters were pushed back. The rift was sealed by a massive gravitational charge deployed by the human flagship. Silence returned to Othries, but it was not the silence of fear. It was the silence of survival. The sky cleared. The human fleet remained, battered, scarred, but unbroken. The suns of Othries shone again, their light filtering through the drifting wreckage of the enemy. In the plaza, Thalcrax stood before Kale. The Kyloth Archon was humbled. His world was covered in the debris of a war he hadn't known existed, fought by a species he had tried to maim. "You saved us," Thalcrax said. "We took your arm, and you gave us your blood." Kale looked at his cybernetic limb. It was scorched from the battle, the chrome blackened. "We are allies now, Archon, whether you like it or not. The signal that brought them here has been stopped, but others will hear it. The silence is ending. The noise is beginning." "What do we do?" Emrek asked, stepping forward. "We are primitives compared to you. Our weapons are toys, our philosophy is dust." "You learn," Kale said. "You adapt, you evolve. We did not start as gods, Emrek. We started as monkeys on a savanna, afraid of the dark. We learned to carry the fire. Now we are teaching you." Kale turned to the human shuttle. "I must return to the flagship. We have wounded to tend to, and repairs to make." "Will you leave?" Thalcrax asked, a note of desperation in his voice. He did not want to be alone in the dark again. "Some of us will move on," Kale said. "The line must be held, but we will leave a detachment here to upgrade your defenses, to teach you the math, to build you a shield." He paused at the ramp, and Archon. "Yes, Ambassador." "Next time a stranger offers you a hand," Kale raised his metal fist, the servos whirring softly, "try shaking it. It saves a lot of ammunition." The human walked up the ramp. The shuttle ascended, rejoining the fleet of shadows high above. Thalcrax looked around at his council. They were shaken, terrified, but they were alive. He looked at the sky, where the human ships were already beginning to repair themselves with swarmbots, knitting their wounds just as the human had knitted his arm. "The galaxy is stranger than we knew," Emrek said quietly. "And more dangerous," Thalcrax replied, "but we are not alone in it anymore." He looked at the spot where Zal's ship had vanished. He looked at the dismantled warheads still littering the city. "Clear the debris," the Archon ordered, his voice strong again. "And get the medical bays ready. The humans said they have wounded. The Kyloth do not owe debts. We will heal them as they defended us." As the Kyloth scurried to obey, a new era began. An era not of conquest, but of cooperation. born from a severed limb, forged in the fires of an invasion, and sealed with the terrifying, beautiful promise of the dangerous ships. The humans were the monsters in the dark, yes, but they were the monsters that ate the nightmares. And for the first time in their history, the Kyloth were happy to walk in the shadow of giants. High above, on the bridge of the Terra Nova, Kale stood watching the planet below. The adrenaline of the battle was fading, replaced by the phantom itch of a limb that was no longer there. "Status," he asked the ship's AI. "Harvester Vanguard eliminated," the cool voice replied. "Kyloth casualties 14%, human casualties 2%. "And the diplomatic mission?" Kale asked, touching the cold metal of his arm. "Success probability upgraded to 99%, the AI said. "The Kyloth are traumatized but receptive. Integration into the defense pact has begun." Kale nodded. He looked at the reflection of his face in the viewport. He looked tired. "Ambassador," the AI said, "medical advises you to repair the damage to your prosthetic. The combat servos are misaligned." "Later," Kale said. "Let them see the damage. Let them see that we bleed even if the blood is hydraulic fluid. It makes us real to them." "Processing," the AI word. "There is an incoming transmission, priority alpha from Earth Command." Kale straightened, put it through. The voice that filled the bridge was old, weary, and laced with static from crossing the galactic void. "Ambassador Kale, report." "Mission accomplished, Admiral," Kale said. "The Kyloth are secured. The sector is reinforced." "Good," the Admiral said, "because we just lost contact with the Orion arm. The main swarm is moving. We need every ship, Kale, even the Kyloth's toys." "They aren't toys anymore, sir," Kale said, watching a Kyloth salvage team tow a piece of human hull plating with reverent care. "They're learning fast." "Get them ready," the Admiral said. "The long night is coming." The link cut. Kale stared out at the stars. They looked peaceful from here. But he knew better. He knew what lived in the spaces between them. He flexed his metal fingers, the servos humming a song of readiness. "Let them come," he whispered to the void. "We have new friends, and we have plenty of arms to spare." The Terra Nova fired its engines, a silent flare of blue in the dark, and began the work of turning a conquered people into a fortress. The war for the arm was over. The war for the universe had just begun. The planet of Othries spun on, no longer a predator's den, but a bastion. And in the center of the Synod, a new statue was being commissioned. It would not be of a Kyloth warrior. It would be of a human, hand outstretched, palm open, a warning, an offer, a promise. Peace is fragile, but the ships that guard it are dangerous. And the humans? The humans are the most dangerous of all because they are the only ones crazy enough to lose an arm to save a soul. The galaxy turned, the shadows lengthened, but on Othries the lights stayed on.